listeners! Welcome back to our episode. I'm your host, Pia, and you're tuning in to We Listen and Learn, your weekly companion on the journey to a more balanced and fulfilling life. I'm so excited to have you here with me today as we dive into another transformative episode filled with real stories, practical wisdom, and heartfelt connections. You know, life can be quite the roller coaster, and sometimes we all need a friend who's been there. Someone who understands the challenges we face and can share honest insights about overcoming them. That's exactly what this podcast is all about, creating a space where we can learn from each other's experiences and grow together. Whether you're a longtime listener or joining us for the first time, I want you to know that this is more than just a podcast. It's a community of people committed to personal growth and finding balance in their lives. Today's episode is going to be particularly special, and I can't wait to share some powerful insights that have made a real difference in my life and could do the same for you. You know, I'll never forget the day I hit my breaking point. It was a typical Tuesday morning, or at least it started that way. I was juggling my full-time job, my side business, volunteer commitments, and trying to maintain some semblance of a social life. I thought I was handling it all like a pro, but my body had other plans. I found myself sitting in my car outside the grocery store at 7 a.m., completely overwhelmed by the simple task of buying breakfast. My to-do list was running through my head like a never-ending ticker tape, and I couldn't even decide whether to get yogurt or eggs. That's when I realized I had been running on autopilot for months, saying yes to everything and everyone except myself. Looking back, the signs were there. I was constantly exhausted but couldn't sleep at night. My apartment looked like a tornado had hit it because I was too busy to clean. I'd been surviving on coffee and takeout, and I couldn't remember the last time I had a genuine conversation with my best friend that wasn't just a quick text about rescheduling our plans. The funny thing is, I thought being busy meant being successful. I wore my packed schedule like a badge of honor, bragging about my hustle on social media while privately falling apart. It took that moment of paralysis in the grocery store parking lot to make me realize that something had to change. This wasn't just about being busy, it was about completely losing touch with what truly mattered to me. I had created a life that looked perfect on paper, but felt completely unsustainable in reality. And you know what? I've learned that so many of us fall into this same trap, thinking we need to do it all to be enough. Now, let's break down what was really happening during this chaotic period, because I bet many of you can relate to these challenges. First, there was the obvious issue of time management, or rather, the complete lack of it. I was operating under the illusion that I could squeeze 30 hours of activities into a 24-hour day. Spoiler alert, physics doesn't work that way. The deeper issue wasn't just about time, though. It was about boundaries, or more specifically, my inability to set them. Every time someone asked for help with a project or invited me to an event, my automatic response was yes. I was terrified of disappointing people or missing out on opportunities. But in trying to please everyone else, I was ultimately disappointing myself. Another major challenge was the constant state of mental fragmentation. My brain was like a browser with 50 tabs open at once, each demanding attention. This cognitive overload meant I couldn't fully focus on anything. I was physically present in meetings, but mentally creating grocery lists. During family calls, I was checking work emails. The result? Everything got done, but nothing got done well. The social media aspect was particularly insidious. I was caught in this cycle of portraying a perfect life online while barely keeping it together in reality. Each carefully curated post about my productive day or exciting new project only added to the pressure to maintain this impossible standard. I know many of you understand this digital reality disconnect all too well. Then there was the physical toll. Stress doesn't just live in your mind, it manifests in your body. The constant tension headaches, the upset stomach, the irregular sleep patterns, these weren't just inconveniences. They were my body literally screaming for help, but I'd gotten so good at ignoring these signals that they had to get louder and louder to get my attention. Perhaps the most significant challenge was my relationship with self-worth. I had unconsciously tied my value as a person to my productivity. If I wasn't constantly achieving something, I felt worthless. This created a vicious cycle where rest felt like failure and relaxation felt like laziness. It's a pattern I've since recognized in so many high achievers. This idea that we need to earn our right to exist through endless doing. Now, Let me share the strategies that actually worked for me, and I think they'll be game changers for you too. The first and most powerful tool I discovered was the sacred hour technique. Every morning, before touching my phone or checking emails, I dedicated 1 hour solely to myself. Sometimes this meant meditation, other times journaling, or simply enjoying my coffee in complete silence. This wasn't easy at first. I literally had to hide my phone in another room, but it became my anchor in the chaos. Next, I implemented what I call the power pause method. Between tasks or meetings, I forced myself to take 3-minute breaks. Just 3 minutes of deep breathing or stretching. It sounds ridiculously simple, but it prevented that mental spillover where one task's stress bleeds into the next. Think of it like pressing a reset button on your brain. One of the most effective strategies was learning to audit my commitments. I created a simple rating system. Each activity or commitment got scored based on 3 criteria: joy, growth, and necessity. If something scored low on all 3, it had to go. This wasn't about being selfish. It was about being strategic with my energy. Remember, saying no to one thing means saying yes to something else that matters more. For dealing with digital overwhelm, I adopted the batch and budget days approach. Instead of responding to notifications all day, I set specific times for email and social media. I literally budgeted my screen time like I budget my money. 20 minutes in the morning, 20 at lunch, and 20 in the evening. The world didn't end, and my productivity soared. Physical well-being became non-negotiable through what I call movement snacks. These are 5-minute bursts of physical activity scattered throughout the day. A quick walk around the block, desk stretches, or even dancing to one song. The key is making them so short and simple that your brain can't argue its way out of them. The game changer for my mental state was the Future Self Journal. Every evening, I spent 5 minutes writing a thank you note to myself from my future self, acknowledging the small wins and conscious choices I made that day. This simple practice shifted my focus from constant self-criticism to appreciation and growth. For better boundaries, I developed the delayed yes protocol. Instead of immediately agreeing to requests, I started saying, "Let me check my schedule and get back to you." This small buffer allowed me to make decisions aligned with my priorities rather than from a place of pressure or guilt. Finally, I created joy appointments, scheduled blocks of time for activities that fill my cup. Whether it's reading a book, calling a friend, or trying a new recipe, these appointments get the same respect as any work meeting. Because here's the truth: if we don't schedule our joy, life will schedule our stress. Remember, implementing these strategies isn't about achieving perfection. It's about progress over perfection and creating a sustainable way of living that honors both our ambitions and our well-being. Now, let's break down how you can implement these strategies in your own life, starting today. The key is to begin small and build gradually. Think of it like building a house. You need a solid foundation before adding the walls and roof. Let's start with the sacred hour. Pick a time that works for you. It doesn't have to be morning if you're not a morning person. Begin with just 15 minutes if an hour feels overwhelming. Place your phone in another room before bed and set a regular alarm clock instead. Your first few days might feel uncomfortable, even anxious. That's completely normal. Stick with it for at least a week before making any judgments. For the power pause method, start by identifying your 3 busiest hours of the day. Set alarms on your phone or computer for these specific times. When they go off, stop whatever you're doing for just 3 minutes. Take 10 deep breaths, stretch your arms overhead, or simply close your eyes. Don't skip these breaks even if you feel too busy, especially when you feel too busy. The commitment audit might feel daunting, so let's approach it systematically. Take out your calendar right now and look at last week's activities. Score each one from 1 to 5 for joy, growth, and necessity. Anything scoring below 9 total gets highlighted for review. Don't feel pressured to eliminate everything at once. Choose one low-scoring activity per week to either delegate, minimize, or eliminate. For the batch and budget approach to digital time, start with just email. Set 3 specific check-in times tomorrow, maybe 9 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. Turn off notifications between these times. Once this becomes comfortable, apply the same principle to social media. Use your phone's screen time settings to help you stick to your budgeted time slots. Movement snacks can fit into even the busiest schedule. Link them to existing habits. Do 5 stretches every time you get a coffee, walk while you're on phone calls, do 10 jumping jacks after using the bathroom. The key is connecting these movement moments to things you already do regularly. For the future self-journal practice, keep it super simple at first. Place a small notebook by your bed and write just one sentence each night. Start with "Thank you for," and acknowledge one positive choice you made that day. Let it grow naturally from there. The delayed yes protocol might feel uncomfortable initially, especially if you're a people pleaser. Practice this exact phrase. That sounds interesting. Let me check my schedule and get back to you tomorrow. Use it word for word until it feels natural. Give yourself permission to take 24 hours before committing to anything non-urgent. Finally, for joy appointments, start with just one 30-minute slot per week. Put it in your calendar with a specific activity, not just me time, but read my novel or call mom. Treat it like a doctor's appointment, non-negotiable and important for your health. Remember to track your progress. Rate your stress levels and overall satisfaction at the end of each week on a scale of 1 to 10. Look for patterns. What's working? What needs adjustment? This isn't about rigid rules. It's about creating a sustainable system that works for your life. Let's talk about some common roadblocks you might encounter on this journey. I've hit every single one of them myself, and I want to help you navigate through them smoothly. The first major pitfall is trying to change everything at once. I remember when I first started implementing these strategies, I attempted to overhaul my entire routine in one day. By day 3, I was overwhelmed and ready to quit. The solution? Pick just one strategy to focus on for 2 weeks. Master it before adding another. Think of it like learning to juggle. You start with 1 ball, not 5. Another common obstacle is the perfectionism trap. You might miss a sacred hour, skip a power pause, or break your digital time budget. Here's what I learned the hard way. Perfect consistency isn't the goal. Life happens. If you miss a day, simply resume the next day. No guilt, no making up for lost time. Progress isn't a straight line. It's more like a spiral, gradually moving upward despite occasional dips. The social pressure challenge is particularly tricky. Friends and family might not understand your new boundaries or time management practices. They might even push back. I experienced this when I started using the delayed yes protocol. Some people took it personally at first. The key is to communicate your goals clearly and stand firm in your commitment to self-care. Most people will respect your boundaries once they understand your why. Decision fatigue is another sneaky obstacle. When you're tracking activities, setting boundaries, and making mindful choices all day, it's easy to get mentally exhausted. I combat this by having preset defaults for common situations. For example, my automatic response to non-urgent requests is always, "I'll check my calendar and get back to you tomorrow." No thinking required. The enthusiasm dip is perhaps the most predictable pitfall. After the initial excitement wears off, maintaining these practices can feel like a chore. This is where tracking becomes crucial. Keep a simple record of how you feel on days when you follow your routines versus days when you don't. The evidence of positive impact will help carry you through the motivation valleys. Watch out for the comparison trap too. You might see others who seem to have mastered work-life balance effortlessly. Remember, you're seeing their highlight reel, not their daily struggles. Focus on your own progress, measured against your starting point, not someone else's middle or end point. Let me share some inspiring stories from people who've successfully implemented these strategies in their lives. One that really stands out is Sarah, a working mom of 3 who was constantly running on empty. After implementing the sacred hour practice, she noticed a dramatic shift in her family dynamics. By waking up just 1 hour before her kids, she created space for her morning routine, which included meditation and planning. Within a month, she reported fewer meltdowns, both from her kids and herself, and a 40% increase in her productivity at work. Then there's Marcus, a software developer who struggled with constant digital overwhelm. He started with the power pause technique, taking 3 intentional breaks during his workday. Not only did his stress levels decrease, but his team noticed that his code quality improved significantly. He told me that these brief pauses helped him catch potential issues before they became problems, saving hours of debugging time later. I received a touching email from Elena, a graduate student who was on the verge of dropping out due to burnout. After implementing the delayed yes protocol and setting clear boundaries around her study time, she not only stayed in her program, but graduated with honors. She now uses these same strategies in her professional life as a researcher. James, a small business owner, combined several of these techniques to transform his work-life balance. He was skeptical at first, but after establishing digital boundaries and implementing structured breaks, his business actually grew by 25% while he worked fewer hours. The key was that he became more present and focused during his working hours, making better decisions and connecting more meaningfully with his clients. One of my favorite success stories comes from a retired teacher, Patricia, who used these strategies to create a fulfilling post-retirement life. She was struggling with the loss of structure after leaving her career, but by creating her own balanced routine, she found new purpose in mentoring young teachers while maintaining time for her personal interests and family. These stories show that regardless of your life stage or circumstances, these strategies can be adapted to work for you. Each person started with small steps, faced their own unique challenges, and found ways to make these practices fit their lives. As we wrap up today's discussion on finding balance through intentional practices, let's recap the key strategies we've explored. The power of creating sacred space for yourself, whether it's through a morning routine like Sarah's sacred hour or Marcus's power pause technique, has proven to be transformative. Remember, it's not about dramatic life overhauls, but rather about implementing small, sustainable changes that compound over time. The delayed yes protocol, as we saw with Elena's story, teaches us that boundaries aren't just walls we put up, they're bridges to better relationships with ourselves and others. When we learn to pause before committing, we create space for what truly matters in our lives. What's particularly exciting about these strategies is their flexibility. You don't need to implement everything at once. Start with what resonates most with you. Maybe it's creating your own morning routine, or perhaps it's setting digital boundaries like James did. The key is to begin somewhere and allow yourself grace as you develop these new habits. Think of this journey as a personal experiment. You're not looking for perfection, you're looking for progress. Each small step forward is a victory worth celebrating. As you move forward from this episode, I encourage you to choose just one strategy we've discussed today and commit to trying it for the next week. Notice how it feels, adjust as needed, and build from there. Remember, finding balance isn't a destination, it's an ongoing practice. The stories we've shared today are proof that with patience, persistence, and the right strategies, meaningful change is not only possible, but achievable for everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of We Listen and Learn. Your presence and engagement mean the world to me, and I hope today's discussion has given you valuable insights and practical tools for creating more balance in your life. If you found value in today's episode, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our podcast. And don't forget to click that notification bell so you never miss any of our weekly episodes. Your support helps us reach more people who could benefit from these conversations, so please share this episode with friends, family, or anyone you think might find it helpful. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're in this together, learning and growing week by week. I love you all so much, and I'm incredibly grateful for this wonderful community we're building. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Until then, keep taking those small steps toward your balanced life. They all add up to something beautiful. Stay tuned for next Monday's episode. Bye!